So we'll work with building a little shopping list here. That's fine. Yeah, just add stuff to it. That is fine. You go do you, IntelliJ. All right. So we need our public static. I think that work. Okay, cool. So if you don't have the method already there, because we're doing this and it doesn't exist, if you do public static void main PSVM and then tab, it'll autofill it for you here. Or you just go copy paste from somewhere, or you type it in the hard way. You know, as long as we get a main method in here, we'll be okay. Remember, this is where Java programs start. You can't run a Java program without a main method. It'll have no idea what to do here. Oh, I picked up my mug and it's empty again. I was just saying it was empty. We know it's a Monday. It's a Monday. Okay, so when we're dealing with files, doing file input and output, now we finally have the opportunity here to put some data somewhere that is going to stay between when our program runs. So before this, the only way we're able to get data from the user is to ask them for it, and they'd have to type it in every time the program ran. Right? Because the only thing we had was that scanner for keyboard. So right, we could use our scanner for keyboard. There's a new scanner, given system.in, and sure, we could do that, and we could ask the user to enter something, but we'd have to ask them every time, and then we had no place to save that data. Like if we wanted to make this little shopping list here and say, hey, what do you want to buy? If I end the program and it loses my shopping list, it's not a very good shopping list, right? You want that to stay around long enough that you can actually, you know, come back to it and say, hey, what was on my shopping list? So what we could do, right, we could store it in an array list of type string here. This will be my list equals a new array list. Right, we can store things in an array list here of strings. I can store my shopping list, but that only will work then if my program's running. When the program turns off, I lose this array list here. This is just keeping values around in memory. So what we want to do is we want to be able to write something to a file first. We're going to write to the file first, and then we'll go and read it. So anytime you're dealing with a file, you do three things. I just can't turn my fingers the right way. You open it, you read or write from it, and then you close it. So we're going to write to a file first. So this is for writing to a file. Now this will look super crazy, and that's okay. It is a little crazy here. Don't worry too much about it here. We're going to do this thing that is a buffered reader, and we'll call this a buffered writer. Come on. I can remember the right thing. No, I'm sorry. I'm copying the wrong thing. A print writer here. A print writer. I'm going to call it my file output. Again, variable name here doesn't really matter much. Yeah, so we want the print writer import here. So java.io.printWriter equals a new print writer. Now here's where it gets silly. Print writer then needs a new buffered reader. Technically, the buffered reader is optional. It's just a good practice. The buffered reader wants a new file writer. Import those. Enter, import. Alt enter, import. File writer then wants the name of the file. So we'll say this is our list.txt. So this just gets a little silly here. See if you can pull that down the line. And now file writer is red. And if you hover over it, it says unhandled exception, java.io exception. We have to do something with it, right? So we need to put it in a try block. So we have to say try, just like when we were doing our number parsing here. We're going to try this, and then we're going to catch a IO exception. We'll call it EX or something like that, or exception or whatever. And if we catch it, we'll just print it back out. if a bad thing happens, right, if an exception happens, we're just going to print it out. But this will keep our program from crashing here, which is nice. Oh my goodness, buffered writer. I did it again. Buffered writer. There we go. And look at that, it changes it finally to import java.io.star. We got enough imports. It's like, import the whole thing. So a print writer needs a buffered writer. Again, sort of optional. Don't worry too much about it here, which needs a file writer, which needs the name of the file. Gets a little long here, but that's okay. So we kind of group all these things together here. Okay, so this will let us write to the file. Well, what do we want to write? Well, we probably should put some stuff in our array list here first. So let's say, how about a string for an item equals, I don't know, let's ask them here. Enter the name of an item to add to your list, or done. And then keyboard.next line. Yeah, exact same thing. So you still need a print writer, need a buffer. Oh, you mean the import here? I think NetBeans will just keep giving you more imports. I don't know if it's too particular or if it has a rule about how many it should do. And we can replace them if we want for the individual imports. It's just a style preference. All right, so we're going to say, okay, enter the name of an item here, and then we'll say while item.equals ignoring case, done, and really while not, so while it's not done, let's take my list here, and we'll add the item. Remember, with an array list, we can just add as many things as we want. We don't need to tell Java what size it is, we'll just keep on going. That works out pretty nice, and then we'll ask them again. So I feel a little bad we have the same prompt twice, essentially. I'm not going to worry too much about it here. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. You know, okay, maybe a little bit here. How about we can turn this into a method, right? We could save one whole line and turn it into a method here. Should we do that? Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to cut that out here. Let's add a method, public static string, and we'll call this what prompt or ask for item name. And we need the scanner here. And we're going to turn the item. So we can say string item equals ask for item name. Right, we'll just turn that into a method, and then we'll repeat that single line here. So we'll add the item, and then we'll ask for the item name. Then we'll add the item, we'll ask for the item name. We'll add the item, we'll ask for the item name. As long as it's not done, we'll keep adding and asking. So if we did it in the other order, we'd have to make sure that it's not done before we add it here. So that's why, like, if you ask for it first, then to make sure that if they give us that thing, I don't know, the loop will stop. Okay. Then, okay, so now we'll have a list of items here. This is just a loop, right? We just keep on going until we get this sentinel word or whatever that indicates the loop is done. You probably don't ever go buy something called done. You've never seen a done at the store before. Right? So now we have the list here in the array list in memory. Now we want to write it here. So this here opens the file. Now, what's cool about print writer and file writer here is that it will create a file if it doesn't exist. Right, that is kind of cool. Okay, then we need to write to the file. So to write to the file, let's just loop through our list here. So we're going to say for string, I don't know, item name, colon, list. So I don't want to call it item because we already have a string for item here. That just gets a little funny. So usually a different variable name is better for that. So we're going to loop through every item in the list here. And I'm going to take my file output. Now, file output, if you hit file output dot, you get a bunch of familiar looking things. They have a bunch of print line commands. Just like system.out.println, but this is going to write it to a file instead of out to the screen here. So let's print the item name. Then when we're done, we need to close the file. So file output.close. close the file. It'll get closed when the program ends, but it's always better practice to close the file explicitly here, especially if you're going to be reading and writing from a file. You don't want to leave it open. So open it, read or write to it, and close it. Always do those three things. But now we'll have a way to save this file to a list.txt file when we're done. Now we haven't read it yet, but at least we can write it so I can come back to it later. Okay, so let's give it a run, see if it works. Excuse me. All right, what else should we do? So definitely coffee. What else should we add to our shopping list? Aside from coffee, what else do we need? Add anything to our list. It's just the list here. Just add a couple things. What do you guys always get when you go shopping? Cookies. Oh yeah, I like it. Cookies. Yep. We got a pack of cookies. Oh, I forget the company name now. It's like a smallish bake shop. They do all natural kind of cookies. We got them from Costco. Eggs. Yeah, definitely eggs. We go through a lot of eggs. If we make eggs for the family, we're using like more than a dozen. Only one egg? Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah. Okay, that's probably a good list for now. We'll say done. So now you'll see in the viewer here, now in NetBeans, you won't see it in the project view, but remember there's a tab, there's project, files, and services. If you go to the file tab in NetBeans, you can see it there. IntelliJ will just show it to us here, which is kind of nice. I can double click it and open it, and I'll see coffee, cookies, eggs, and a fourth line that's blank. Because remember, when you use print line, it adds the new line character at the end here. So I have an empty line, which is, it's okay. It's not ideal, but that's all right. Okay, so we've written to the file. Should we ask them, do they want to read or write the file? Or you know, let's go read it here after the fact, just for fun. So let's go try that. So we're going to see if we can now read the file. Now, reading the file is just a little bit different here. So when you read a file, you want to make sure that the file actually exists first. So to do that, you use this thing called the file class. So we'll call this the file. We'll say this is a file equals a new file. And we'll say, what's the name of the file? List.txt. So this is the file class here from java.io. And then we can say, hey, if file.exists here. So exists means, yes, there is a file. Because you can put anything you want here for a file. It might not exist. Right? You might not have a file with that name here. So if it exists, then we can try and catch an IO exception, and print out the exception. Sure. So what do we want to try? So we're going to do one of these crazy chain things. So this one we need a buffered reader. We'll call this an input file equals a new buffered reader. Buffered reader then wants a file reader. A new file reader. And file reader wants the file itself. This one's not quite as long because we did the new file thing up here. Some people will do the new file thing inside of here, or the book will do that sometimes. I always like using the if exists here. This is almost always nicer here, just in case something weird happened and the file doesn't exist, or you typoed it or something. You would get the exception if the file doesn't exist, and that's okay, but this is probably a little cleaner here. If you can avoid doing the exception, you're better off. Okay? Then, so this opens the file for reading. Okay? Then we're actually going to read the file. And then when we're done, we're going to close the file. I can smell the coffee downstairs. My mouth is like watering thinking about it. Input file.close. So what do we do to read the file? Now this gets a little funny here. So input file here has some methods. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to say, hey, the line is my input file.readLine. So read line will read the entire line. You do have a couple options here with the things you can read. Don't recommend you use anything other than read line. Read line is probably your best bet here. It will just make life easiest. It'll just read the entire line, save it in as line. Now, we have no idea how many lines are actually in this file here at all. So what we're going to do, we're going to say while my line does not equal null. Not equal. So if it reads a line and there is nothing left to read, it'll give you null back. So that's how you know you reached the end of the file, right? So the end of the file, line becomes null. So yeah, it's a little funny here, but that's okay. So we're going to say, okay, while it's not null, let's keep on going here. Actually, let me put that there, sorry. That's better. What we're going to do is let's just, for now, we're just going to print out the line. That's not very interesting here. We're just going to print it out. And then we'll say line equals input file.read line. Right, read the next line. If that line is not null, there was something to read, we'll just print it out to the screen and then try the next one. Print it out to the screen, try the next one, print it out to the screen, try the next one. So it's not going to do anything interesting. We're just going to read the file here, right? See if we can spit all those contents back out. Let's give it a shot. And now we're going to notice a bad thing about FileWriter here in a second. FileWriter, by default, here will overwrite your files. And maybe it's PrintWriter. PrintWriter will overwrite any existing file. So what that means is now list here is empty. If I try and open up list again, not yet. Okay, as soon as I close the file, I think. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm still here. I'm still at this loop. That's why it hasn't done it yet. So if we just say copy, and then we say cookies, and then we say done. Now my list file has coffee and cookies. I lost my eggs because we overwrote the file. So that's a little bit tricky here. Okay, but then we were able to read it okay, right? We went and read it, coffee, cookies. Now we also got that blank line though, too, which is, it's a little bit funny here. We probably don't want that blank line. So we can check, we can say, hey, if line dot is empty, maybe is blank. If not is blank, then we can go do this thing here. Because that'll avoid the last blank line here. But this, if we're not blank, go do this thing here. So we'll try it one more time. We want to get coffee and cookies out. Maybe we'll put eggs back in. And we should be able to get all three of them out without the extra new line here. Because we don't want to put that into our shopping list. So coffee and cookies and eggs and done. There we go. Now we get coffee, cookie, and eggs. Oh, we still have a blank line here. Maybe it's not. It's empty. Maybe it is empty. Let me try that one more time. Maybe his blank was wrong. There's like a subtle difference between the two, and I can never remember which one is which. True if length is 0. Okay, sure. So coffee and cookies and eggs and done. No, we're still getting it. Why are we still getting it? Where else am I printing? The line is not empty. Print the line. Print line is putting it down one. That's what's happening. Terrible practice for career applications. So what you want to do so sometimes you do want to overwrite. I mean, so like if you're just replacing a file here with your current shopping list, great. There's nothing wrong with it here. If you want to open the file and then add to it, there's an option called append mode. To get append mode, you here with your file writer, you give it a name and then you give it true. And that is append mode here. By default, append mode is off. You can put append mode on with the file writer. So I'm going to just drop that in here with a comment for that. So you can add a true argument to file writer for append mode. And append mode then will open it and start writing stuff at the end of the file. So it's not going to erase anything. Now we can actually get around this though, because what we can do instead here, we can read it first here. So I'm going to cut all this out. I'm going to go read the file first. Let's go here. And instead of just printing it here, I want to add the items to my list here. I'm going to say list.add the line. So it's going to add it to our shopping list here. And then we'll close the file, and then we'll tell them, we'll say for, wait, where do we have that right here? We'll say system.out.println. Here's the item. So we're going to display current list on screen. So we'll go read it first, and then we'll display it here, and then we'll ask if there's anything else you want to add. Right? And then when we write it here, because we added the existing items to this list here, we're going to rewrite everything back on top. Right? So we're going to read it all out, store it in the list, show you what's in the list, let you add to the list, and then we're going to write the entire list back to the file. Let's give it a try here. Should probably tell them this was the existing list. Here's what's on your list right now. Okay, good. Yeah. So we're skipping that blank line. Good. We'll say, here's what's on your list now. Okay, what else do you want to add? Do you want to add anything to our list? Coffee, cookies, and eggs? How about we add some milk then? And then we'll say done. So now our file then gets overwritten, but what it's overwritten with is the entire list, because we read coffee, cookies, and eggs originally, then we went and added milk to it. So we don't even really need to use that append mode here. Right, so then we can, ask them, do you want to add or remove anything? Right, you can even remove items from a list if we wanted. Hey, let's let them add a bunch of things. And then, should we ask if they want to remove anything? Can do that, right? Should we ask if they want to remove anything first? Say, okay, do you want to remove, I don't know, how about this? We'll say enter the name of an item to remove, or done. And then, okay, this ask for item name, it's currently saying to add to the list or done. So the only thing different we want to do between add and remove is one word here. So how about we have a string for the action. And then we'll add the action, and then we'll add to your list. So we can tell it, hey, add, enter the name of an item to add to your list, or remove, enter the name of an item to remove from your list to your list. Okay, we'll take out the word to. Add to, remove from. Okay, so every time we're going to call this here then, this is add to. This is add to. And then we can use that same thing here. We can say remove, nope, don't cut it out. Remove from. remove from, and while not item dot equals ignoring case done, we're going to remove the item. We're going to take our list that we can call remove the item, and then we can ask for another item. Right, so the array list lets you remove things. It's super cool. You can say, hey, remove this item. Remember, and then it will shrink itself back down. So we can remove anything we want, and then we can go add anything we want here. Then we can go write it to the file. Give it a little format here. Oops, too many lines, Okay, should we try it? Let's try it here. It's thinking hard. Let's try it. Oh, my mug is empty again. Keeps getting me. All right, so we have coffee, cookies, eggs, and milk. And then we have an item to remove. Okay, let's say we bought eggs. Let's remove eggs here. And then we'll say done. And then do we want to add anything? Yeah, we can definitely chat after class. If we want to add anything to the list, how about we add, how about cream? And then we'll say done. So then what's in the list now is coffee, cookies, milk, and cream. Right? Eggs was removed from our list here. Okay, so we can add to, remove from using the array list, and then we can still read and write that array list. Okay? One other thing we want to do here is we should ask them for the name of their shopping list. So you don't always want to call it list.txt, or sometimes you might have a Target list, and you might have a Meijer list, or you might have a Kroger list, and you want to keep all these things separate because you like to buy different things at different stores, right? So we should ask them, hey, what's the name of the list that you, what's the name of the shopping list that you want, right? So, okay, I guess I need the scanner keyboard in here again. So scanner keyboard, there's a new scanner, given system.in. Okay, and we'll say enter name of your shopping list file, and then we'll get a string for file name is whatever they type in. So now I can use file name here instead of just a hard-coded string for list. I can say, okay, give me the file name, and same thing for writing, give me the file name here. Okay, so if the file doesn't exist, we're not reading anything, right? And there's nothing on the list to start. So let's give it a try. So I should be able to say, hey, this is my Meijer list, or this is my Target list, or this is my Costco list, right? And put all those things in. So enter the name of the list. So we'll call this the Meijer list.txt. Now, not all the users are going to add a .txt, and that's okay. Adding the .txt tells your computer, like, hey, it's a text file. I know what to do with it. When I double click it, it'll open right. File extensions are technically optional. They're just nice to have. All right, so here's what's on your list. Nothing. Anything we want to remove from the list? Nothing. So done. What do you want to add to the list? All right, so for Meijer, we're going to buy coffee, we're going to buy eggs and milk, and then done. And now I'll have a Meijer list.txt. Right? And then if I run it again, I can go give it the Meijer list to start, and it should go read eggs, milk, or coffee, eggs, and milk. Right? If I give it a different name, it's just going to make a new file for me. So this is the Meijer list.txt. Here's what's on the list. Enter the name of an item to remove. All right, we bought eggs. Done removing things. Let's go add cream. And done. And now we have coffee, milk, and cream in the Meijer list, and we have coffee, cookies, milk, and cream in our regular list. Right, so that string for the file name can be a variable as well. Right? It doesn't have to always be a hard-coded, hey, this is list.txt. Now, sometimes you want that, and other times you don't. Just depends on what you're doing here. Okay, supposed to slide the music down. Okay, all right. So we're working on our shopping list. We're able to add to it by essentially reading it first and then writing it. Now, what we want to do here is we want to be able to kind of make a slightly more interesting program, right? This is just a single line here, right? Where just one thing goes on at a time. It'd be nice if we could have some additional pieces of information there, right? So what we want to do is we want to make essentially a class that we can write to the file here. So let me go and add a new class here, and we'll call this our item class. And then item will have a private string for name, and how about a private, how about just an int for quantity, right? So how many of the thing are we going to buy? Okay, and then let's go add some methods here, right? I don't want to type them by hand, so I'm going to do the generate, where you can do the insert code in NetBeans. We'll add a constructor that takes a name and a quantity. Cool, so if you know the name and quantity, we'll take it, and then we'll add getters and setters here. We'll generate some code for getters and setters. And now we have get name, set name, get quantity, set quantity. All right, that's all looking pretty good so far. And then I'm going to add one more method here, which is just, yeah, let's do one more here. So let's get a public string get. We'll say this is for file line, or how about get line for file. And what we're going to do, we're going to return a single line here. So we're going to return name plus, and I'm a fan of this pipe character here, plus quantity. So this pipe character, that's the shift backslash, is used rarely. So it makes a pretty good delimiter here. Sometimes there are commas in names. So comma is not the best delimiter here. But saying I'm going to put a name and a quantity separated by a pipe here makes it kind of easy here to know what doesn't belong, right? The pipe is a very weird character. You don't often see that one. Okay? So we're going to do that. So we're going to use that here then. So let me actually, let me make a new file here. Let me try that. So let's do a new Java class. We'll call this our shopping list program with classes. Okay? I want to leave this one as is here, and then I want to show you how we can do it with classes. Does that sound okay? So I'm just going to copy paste all that in. So it's the old version, and we're going to start changing here to use our item class. Okay? So now we also need to capture the quantity for things here. So that's a little bit unfortunate, right? This is the name of an item we can't really use this for add and remove, because if we're removing something, we don't care what the quantity was here. Or maybe we'll just use it anyway. Maybe we'll say, hey, how about, that's fine. We'll just use it anyway. We'll say enter the quantity, and then we'll have an int for quantity is integer.parseInt of the keyboard.nextLine, keyboard.nextLine, and then we can make an item equals a new item, given the name and the quantity. Oh, I'm sorry, this is item and quantity. We should rename this thing to name here. So I'm going to call this one name instead of item, given the name and quantity. And then instead of returning a string, we're going to return an item, right? The instance of our item class here. Because now I can package up, right? I can encapsulate all the details of item, which is name and quantity here, into one nice little package here. Okay, so then I have the item class ready to go here. And then when we start, so our array list here needs to be of type item, not type string. So I'd say, hey, I want an array list of items, not an array list of strings, because I want to capture the name and quantity together. So I can't just add the item here. So what I need to do is I need to get the name and I need to get the quantity. Okay, so there's I don't know if we've seen this yet here, but once we have a line, there's a really cool thing that will take it and turn it into a string array. We'll call the parts. You say line.split. So split says, hey, give me the character that you want me to split on. And I can say, hey, here's my pipe character. Split. Now notice it turned orange. This is actually a weird, it's use special, so you need to escape it. I had to Google this for the Tuesday night class, so this is don't expect you to have to memorize any of this. Usually, you can just like say, "Hey, split on say like the semicolon character," and it'd be fine with that. Maybe I should have used semicolons, but for a pipe, you have to do this silly thing here. I Googled it last time, but don't worry about it here. Okay, and then I can have a string for name is my parts index of 0, is it's everything, so it'll split it into an array based on every time there's a pipe, it'll add another piece to that array. So then I'll have an int for quantity is integer.parseInt of parts of 1. Quantity, and then I can make an item equals a new item given the name and quantity, and then I can take my list and I can add the item. And I can go get the next line. So we're going to split that on this special character here, and then grab the two parts, the name and the quantity, split it up, and put it in here. Right, and then for string item, this is now item in the list, we want to print item.getName plus, or maybe the quantity first, right? So item.getQuantity of plus item.getName. Right, so like 7 of coffee. I don't know. Or we just append them together here. We probably need a space between them though, don't we? It's like 7 coffee. Sure. I mean, it's not going to be the prettiest list, but it's okay. It'll be all right. Right, and then we need a string for item name. And then as long as the item name does not equal done. Now we can't just remove an item name. Okay, so this is going to be a little funny here. Removing an item's not going to work. Shoot, I forgot. It's not going to work for us here. So we need the item name, and we can't just call remove here because this doesn't work, unfortunately. So what we need to do is we need to loop through it. So for lots of reasons, I'm sorry, this removing won't work very well with item class instances. Have to do it the hard way. Okay, so then this is still going to be an item though, so this will be an item, there we go. Ask for item name, remove from, okay. And while item name dot get name dot equals ignore case done, right? No, item. So the item get name. So as long as the name of the item is not done, then I need to go and find it in the list here. So we're going to say for index 0, index is less than my my list dot size index plus plus. So I need to say, hey, if the list dot get the index dot get name dot equals, oh my goodness, ignoring case, the item dot get name here. So we're going to compare the current item in the list loop with the item to remove. Right, so we're going to get the list at index, their name, if it equals the item, here this should be item to remove, right? So let me refactor, rename this one. Rename, this is item, yeah, rename code occurrences, item to remove, here. There we go, that's a little bit nicer. So if the item to remove, right, if the name is not done, then go get the current item that we're looping through. If it is there, then I can say, hey, take my list and I want to remove a given index. And I want to remove the index here. Okay. Now I also want to break here. This is ugly. Removing things, looping through lists is weird. So if we remove it here, all of a sudden now our size should be lower, and it might do some weird things here. So we probably want to just break our loop here. It might work here with list size. Well, we'll see. Maybe it'll be fine. But we just can't call remove here. And then we'll get another item to remove when we're done. You know, maybe it'll work without it. We'll try it without it here. If it breaks, we'll come back to that. So here's our note for this. So the hard way is looking through every item ourselves and saying, hey, does the name match, to remove it here? Because the, you know, contains isn't going to work with items. That's all. Moving with .remove, item to remove, won't work for lots of reasons. We don't really get into it later, I'm sorry. The next class we'll get into more of that, or data structures we'll get into more of that. Just for now, just know it won't work, okay? And then oh, this is just item here. So this is item to add, is ask for an item here. So this is a item to add. Well, the item to add dot get name does not equal done. We'll add the item. We'll ask for a new item to add. We can still add items here. Okay, and then instead of now taking each item name, we want the, this is a type of item. We'll call it item in our list. We're going to print item dot get line for the file. And getting line for the file will give me that nice pipe delimited output here. All right, so there's a bunch of changes here. It should auto kind of work here now. What is this? That's fine. Hey, Not Prof, how you doing today? Good to see you. Hope the pandemic's treating you well. My friends, Not Prof is an amazing math professor extraordinaire. Do you still stream your classes, or did you get back to doing normal things? It was just fantastic. So thanks for dropping on by. Let's see if we can now write this using our item class, so we can capture name and quantity. Oh, very cool. All right, the name of our file then. So let's call this a list with quantity.txt. Yeah, I still don't like Zoom, so going with Twitch for fun. All right, so there's nothing in the list. We don't want to remove anything, so we're done. Enter the quantity again. The quantity doesn't really matter. It just was too lazy to change this here. All right, enter the name of an item to add to our list here. So let's add coffee. And how much coffee should we buy? Let's buy like a dozen coffees. All right, what else should we add to the list? We should add, we wanted eggs. How about a dozen eggs? And then we're going to add some milk. Oh goodness, my computer's freaking out. Can't. Where'd it go? There we go. Some milk. And let's just buy like 2 gallons of milk here. And we'll say done. And the quantity, again, doesn't matter. We should probably fix that, but that's okay. And now we have a list with quantity here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're writing the wrong thing here. Done, 1. Okay, we did a bad thing here. What do we do here? Name is the keyboard next line. Quantity is the quantity. It shouldn't have been done. So what do we do? So we must have written the wrong thing here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we made the item. That's reading it. It says on the writing the file here. So let's write the file. It said for item in list dot. Oh, we've been adding the item to remove. We're going to add the item to add. That is a bad copy paste. Bad copy paste. So let me go delete that list with quantity because that's totally bad here. We don't want that one anymore. Let's try it one more time. Yeah, with 6 kids, we go through a lot of eggs and milk, and I go through a lot of coffee. My wife and I do. All right, so let's try this again. So this is our list with quantity.txt. There's nothing to remove, so we'll say done. Quantity doesn't matter. Okay, name that we want to add here. So coffee. Again, a dozen of them. Let's do eggs. We'll do a dozen eggs, and then we'll do milk. And we'll say 2 milk, and then we'll say done. The quantity doesn't matter. We'll have to fix it up later. And now I see coffee 12, eggs 12, milk 2. All right, so now we need to see if we can read it again. So let's run it and give it the same list with quantity and see if it reads it okay, and then if we can modify it here. So maybe we'll try and take out one of those items and see if that's working for us here. Okay, so this is list with quantity.txt. Here's what's on the list. All right, what do we want to remove from the list? We want to remove, how about we remove eggs, and sure, 1, and then done, and then the quantity doesn't matter. Okay, what do we want to add? So let's add some creamer, and let's add 1 cream. We'll say done. Quantity doesn't matter for done. And let's see if our list now has, we have coffee, we have milk, and we have cream. We were able to get rid of eggs successfully. Look at that. It's working. All right, so we have 2 different versions, right? One that uses the class and one that uses just a string. Right? So the class is obviously much more interesting, has a lot more going on here, and that's what we're going to kind of roll with for our next project. Okay? So let's mostly loaded here. Nope, not even fully loaded. That's okay. Still thinking about it. So we'll look at this one more time. Yep, this is our movie theater here. So we're just going to have one show, essentially. A couple options, right? They can make a file for the show. Yeah, we can chat after class for sure. Good morning. And then the number of tickets they want to sell. So we'll make the file with the list of tickets, the purchaser's name, and random verification code being empty. Right, this will make life easier for us. So if I say, hey, I'm going to have 20 tickets for the show, I'll make 20 tickets, save 20 empty tickets to the file. So I'll have ticket number 1, ticket number 2, ticket number 3 in that file. And then option 2 is I can sell tickets for the show that we specify. So, okay, hey, let's go sell tickets now for the show we just made a file for. We'll read the file, load all those tickets into the ticket array, and then the user can go and see if they want to buy one. So once I've got those tickets in an array of tickets, we'll see if it's been sold or not, right? Whether or not, maybe 0 for the confirmation code is probably easy to check, or if the name is blank here. And then option 3 is going to give us the report of each ticket. Okay, so we've done a little bit here. Don't need this project. Let's open our... Okay, it doesn't know... Oh, because I reinstalled. That's why. It's like, why does it know any of our projects? We'll go to 1500. Nope, apparently not. Documents, GitHub. Wow. I don't know what it's doing there. I think it's just trying to be helpful. We did, we're working on files. No, that's the Tuesday class. We're Monday, Wednesday. File IO, there we go. This is our file IO chapter. And yeah, let's trust those projects. Okay. Almost there now. Getting this started back up. I'm missing my coffee. Should be done. I started the pot just before it came back up. But apparently, it should be done, what, 10, 15 minutes to brew a pot? I don't even remember. Come on. And my sugar's too high again. It's a rough day, friends. So we did our little shopping list program with classes and without classes. So this idea here, we'll do a quiz on chapter 17, because I think that's the last full chapter we're actually going to cover, because we don't cover all the files chapter here. Did we have one on 11 for arrays and array lists? Not sure we had that one. Wednesday feel like Monday? Yeah. Oh, we didn't do 11. Okay, so we'll do 11 and 17. Let me open up 11 for you. I'm sorry. Yeah, so we'll do 11 and then 17 next week after we get into the Java FX stuff. But chapter 11, we should have covered everything for our arrays and array lists. Or, I'm sorry, 11 was arrays. 12, we just talked about array lists. So let's put this out. We'll do like, I don't know, there's no big rush on it, so why don't we go to like the 11th or so. Okay, and I think it's already attached to the quiz score. Yep, cool. All right, so that one will be out there. Thank you. Sorry about that. That 11 and then 17 when we cover Java FX next week will be our last quizzes. Okay, and then it should be set up to actually drop your lowest quiz score as well. They're in D2L, so if one of them didn't go so well, it'll just drop that one for you. Don't worry too much about it. Okay, so we're going to focus on the shopping list with classes portion here, because that's what we were doing, and what we're going to do with the project is take a class here and read and write it from a file. So in this case, we added a fun little, hey, we want to get the line for a file that we're going to turn into the single line in a file. So I can put all of its attributes on a single line and kind of like separate them here with a character that I don't expect. This pipe character. Is that font kind of small? What happened to my font? I thought the font was a little bit larger than this. I'm confused. Feels a little small. Oh, because I reinstalled it is why. That's why. The editor. Font. There we go. Let's make that a little bit larger here. Let's go maybe 16 or so. Is that a little easier there to see now? A little bit nicer? Okay, cool. Right, so, and then all the other things get since that's for our different attributes if we need them, right, if it makes sense for it. But this way we can get the info for the file when we write it to a file here. So I'm going to keep an array list of that item here. So this way I can work with it in memory, and then I will either read it out of the file here. So this was the splitting on that funny character, that pipe character here. And then I'd say, okay, the first part was the name, the second part was the quantity. Hey, Official Gatman, how you doing today? And we make the item and then add it to our list. So this way we would read the file, creating the item instances, and put them into our array list of items, so I can work with them later. Questions are good. And then when we were writing the file, we would go and for every item that's in our list of items here, we'd print the whatever we're getting this get line for file was to say, hey, let's do this cool little delimited, and I want the pipe in between all of these. So if our class has a way that it can turn itself into a single line here, it's maybe a little bit easier. Not necessarily. It doesn't necessarily have to be in here. It just makes life easy for us that it can already convert for us and do that sort of work here. We might even be able to add a similar method if we wanted to for turning this funny line here into an item, but again, not too particular here. Either of those should work. So let's try it with another, let's do like another file IO project. Let's do that. Because I'll leave this one as is. We'll do another one. So Java with Maven project, probably easiest. The other one just seemed to stop working for me. I don't know. I got confused. Wednesday. And then what are we going to call this one? This will be more file IO2. Sure, file IO2 is probably fine. Well, let's get loaded up. So I'm going to do it in a new window though, because I want to copy some of this stuff when it comes to files, because we have to like do all these crazy things. Like the buffer reader needs a file reader, which needs the file, and all sorts of things here. Fish Game Man, unfortunately, every organization's a little bit different. It's just kind of weird. The best thing I can suggest is going and looking on sites like Glassdoor or other places that, say after you've gone through an interview, you can post what the interview is like, so you can get a little familiarity with what their process usually is. But as like a junior position, I don't think we'd expect any sort of like master level of any topics here, but like, hey, you've got some broad-based exposure to lots of things, is typically what we look for junior developers, and you're at least familiar and can talk about technology, and generally I like to see people talk about projects that they were interested in and what was interesting about it, what hard things did they have to overcome, and trying to see if people can problem solve, I think, is the biggest key here. So I'm going to add a package for file IO2, because you want somebody who can go and solve problems. It's kind of the idea. It's generally a good indicator that they'll be a good developer, rather than they just kind of sit around and wait for someone to tell them, hey, go code this, sort of thing. No, we're not going to get into any frameworks in particular. They're like sets of tools around a particular technology that make stuff a lot easier. I don't know if that might be the easiest way to say it. What is our class here? So here's file IO2. All right, here we go. So we got all this here. Like, yeah, there's all sorts of interesting frameworks, depending on what you want to work on here. Yeah, if you know 1,000 technologies and you're bad at problem solving still. Yeah, I mean, there's places for all people with all sorts of different skills, definitely. But generally, what I like to look for is people who can problem solve and have done something that they're interested about that they can talk about. So I need a public static void main method here. So there's my little shortcut PSVM, public static void main, and then that'll auto expand. Or you can just go copy paste it here. So we want to, let's work with, let's see if we can't keep like a ledger of transactions here. So I'm going to make a transaction class here. And then transaction is going to have probably a private string for the account name. Here it'll have a private double for the amount. And then how about a private string for the date? There are other ways to do dates. It's really kind of beyond what we want to tackle right now to do them in a more complete manner. So we're just going to take a string. So they can type in whatever date they want, and we don't need to try and force them all to fit a particular way or not here, if that's all right with you. So we'll do transactions, and then let's generate a bunch of code, right? I need a constructor, and I need gets and sets. So let's do getters and setters. I'm just going to put getters and setters for all of them. Again, it might not be appropriate, right? If we want to store transactions, you might not want to be able to change these sorts of things. So maybe we don't have sets. Yeah, maybe we don't have sets. So this will be like one-way transaction. So you can make the transaction, but we can't ever go and change its attributes. So we'll just do gets here. And then all of those values then we need to pass into the constructor. So once we make a transaction, it's going to be stuck as this account, this amount, and this name. So you give me the account name, I'll save it as my account name. You give it the amount, I'll save it as my amount. You give me the date, I'll save it as my date. And then all we let you do is get them back out. So not really a lot of logic or anything happening here, but it's a way to kind of group all these attributes together so that they're easier for me to work with. Okay, so I'm going to make an array list of type transaction. These are my transactions. There's a new array list. Okay. And yes, we want to import array list, please. So we need to read and write the file. So there's no file to read yet, so we can skip that one for now, I guess. And we'll just say, why don't we ask them to enter some transaction information? So I will say, enter a transaction or an account name or done. Yeah, sure, be all done. And then we'll have a string for the account name. Is my keyboard.next line. Oh, we need scanner for that, right? we'll do scanner keyboard, there's a new scanner, given system.in, add our imports, yes please. Okay, and then while the account name dot equals ignoring case is done, and not that, right? Well, it's not done. Let's keep on going here. So as long as it didn't tell me done, we'll say, okay, how will we ask for the amount then? So we need a double. Our amount is double.parseDouble of the keyboard.next line. Oops, we should probably ask them for that first. Enter the transaction amount, and then enter the transaction date, and get a string for date is just keyboard.next line. Then we'll take the account name, we'll take the amount, we'll take the date, and then we will turn them into a new transaction. The transaction equals a new transaction, given the account name, the amount, and the date. And then I can take my transactions list here, right? We can add the, nope, wow, what? That was weird. It didn't copy. There we go. We can add the transaction to it. Then we want to ask them for an account name. We're done. Right, keep on going here so the loop can keep going. So this will get a whole list of transactions for us here, and then in our transaction class, let's do that same sort of getting a string. So public string, get string for file or something like that. And then we can return the account name, plus the pipe character, plus the amount, plus the pipe character, plus the date. Right? We can convert all of those here. So then we can write a file. Let's go and just borrow one we did writing a file over here. Right? We need a try catch block here because bad stuff could happen when you do file IO. So we're going to make a print writer given a buffer writer, given a file writer, given a particular file name. So we need a name for the file here. So we'll say, how about this is string, file name is transactions.txt. Sure, right, txt because it's a text file, we're going to save it there. And then for transaction in transactions, we'll say transaction.getLine for file. Oops. That one, copy paste is getting funny here. We'll write the get string for file. Sure, get string for file. And then when we're done, we'll close the file. So it should be able to write all of our transactions out to a file. Right, that's all this one does. So let's give that one a try. So we should be able to give a couple transactions here. Maybe we should have had transaction name instead of the account name. Like if we wanted to list what the transaction was for, I don't know. This is fine. All right, it's Billy. I gotta grab my coffee. All right, so sure, let's say that, hey, this is for Netflix was $14.99, and that was, how about today, $3.30, oh, $3.20, sure, why not? And then we'll do one more, we'll do, how about for Disney Plus? Disney Plus, that one was, what, $8.99 or something, and that one we had to pay on $3.30. There we go, we actually got the 30, and then we'll say done. Let's see if we can get those two out to the file here. Now we should have a transactions.txt file. Here you go. Netflix, $14.99, $3.20. Disney Plus, $8.99, $3.30. So we see the data out there. Looking good so far. So then we need a way to read the file, right? If we want to like keep adding to this transaction list here. So we can go and read the file first here. So if we want to read the file, and this is a try catch block here. Actually, so we're going to make the file first. So we make a file equals a new file, and we give it the file name. Say, okay, hey, let's see if there's a file with this file name here. And then we can check if that file exists. Because if it doesn't exist, there's nothing for us to read. It's not going to work very well. So it's always better if you're going to read a file, make sure it exists first. Just a good practice. Then we can go through and get some values here. So if it exists, and we'll do a try catch block. Because bad stuff could happen here. We need a buffered reader that uses a file reader that uses file. Here we're going to read one line at a time, and then we're going to split here on this. So now I actually have 3 different parts here. So still splitting on pipes, but I'm going to have the name. I'm going to have the double for the amount is double.parseDouble of the next part. And then I'm going to have the date here as a string is parts of 2. Right? If there's 3 parts, I get index 0, index 1, and index 2. And then I'll make a new transaction. Transaction is a new transaction, given the name, the amount, and the date. And we'll take our transactions list, and we'll add the transaction. Right? And then we'll read the next line. Keep on going. So reading the file similar here, and then we can print them all out if they want here. So we could say for transaction in transactions. Let's go print, so we can say, hey, here's your current list, current transaction list, and then we'll print the transaction.get account name plus, I don't know, a $sign plus transaction.get amount plus on plus transaction.get date. How about that? Does that seem reasonable? So the account, the amount, and on a given date here. So we'll print out their current list, and we can ask them to add more names here, account names, whatever, dates, amounts, write them all back out to the file. So when we write to the file this way, remember this will overwrite, but because we've already read the file, I have them all in my array list. So rewriting that file with the array list is no problem, because I have all the existing stuff. So we can only really add to. We haven't been able to remove anything, but that's okay. We're not going to remove anything right now. It's probably trickier than we care to. So when it runs, it should go read those 2 transactions for Netflix and Disney Plus. So that's our enhanced for loop, right? This read-only for loop here. So for every transaction, we're going to call transaction in the transactions collection here. Yep. Yeah, you could do it the same way if we wanted to with by index. If you wanted to, you could say for index 0, index is less than my transactions dot. Remember, there's an array list. We use size index plus, and then we'd say transactions dot get the index, right, to get out a particular transaction, and then we can call get account name, and so on like that. Right, we can get them all that way if we wanted. Or actually really more like what it's doing here, it's saying transaction equals transactions get the index. Right, and then this same line is the same thing. Then, because now this transaction variable is whatever we got at that index. This is just the enhanced read-only loop. Right? So same idea here. Let me just comment those ones out though, if you don't mind. What is that? Let's see. Should I put it? I should put it below, I guess, right? Say it's the same as above. Same as above. Looping by index. That sound good? Yeah, always happy to throw in more notes and stuff like that. So just shout at me, please. Thank you. So we're able to read those. Okay, if we want to add another transaction, yeah, let's see what else we pay for. Probably HBO Max, right? This one's for my little guy because it has Sesame Street. That is the official party line for HBO Max. What is that one? $9.99 or something? I should really look these up. $3.29. Sure. And then we'll say done. right? And now our transaction file, we should have added the HBO Max subscription. Sure. All right, it's just going to add to the list. Now it's not sorted at all. These dates are funny. Again, it's a little bit awkward, but that's okay. This is the idea that we can go make files and read them given a file name. So if your file name needs to be different, right? Like, hey, which movie or which theater, like just ask for a different file name. And you can use that same file name when you make your files here and when you write your files. You can use that same variable. So similar ideas there.